Welcome to another episode of Mater Madness, and today we are going to be taking a look at a 1970 VW Beetle. I'm going to go into kind of like a review of it. For people that might be looking at one or wanting to daily drive one, there's a couple things to take note of that we'll go into further detail later. We're going to be going over performance, creature comforts, some styling, and what it's going to cost and maintenance-wise. Before we get on the road, I'd just like to go over the engine. The engine's just a 1600cc VW engine, single carburetor, nothing special. It's recommended to change the oil every 1,000 miles or so because there's no oil filter inside of them. And when you change the oil, I have a video about that coming out later. You have to adjust the valves every 3,000 miles, but I'm going to look at it about every oil change because it's not really hard to do. There's plenty of storage in these cars. We'll go ahead and take a look at that. These VWs have quite a bit of storage up front because the engine's in the back, obviously. Don't mind all the stuff up front. It's just parts and stuff for the car, but it's got a decent amount of storage in these cars. There's also a small little piece behind the back seat you can put some storage in. The styling on it's pretty consistent. I mean, they're all going to look kind of like this. I like the look of them. This one's completely original except for the rims, and I cannot remember exactly what they are. A couple things that make this one different than a regular, like an older style Bug, are the taillights for one. The taillights after, like in the 70s, they made them bigger for safety and all that stuff, so those are a little bit bigger, but everything else on the Bug on a 70s is going to look kind of similar to the earlier models with a couple different touches. So comfort wise, it's not that great compared to some of the new cars, obviously, but this is as far back as the seat goes. I have just enough room to use all the pedals and such, but it's not that big of a deal because you can lean pretty far back. Passenger seat's pretty comfortable. You got a small storage compartment in there for stuff like that, and this is where you would open the front hood or whatever you want to call it. So you just pull on that and that unlocks that. In the back is a different story. Now this seat's all the way back because that's how I drive. Sitting behind myself, there is not a lot of room, and headroom is extremely limited. So if I were to sit back here, I'd have to be pretty crunched up. And there are seat belts, so I guess that's a plus. But really not a whole lot of space back here. Like I mentioned before, there is more storage in the back, although not great. There is some there. I usually put stuff up front, though. Makes it easier to get to. Alright, so let's go ahead and take it out on the road. Now, it is a cold day. I'd say it's about 32 degrees, but this Bug is pretty good about starting up in the morning or when it's a cold day, so it should only take about one pump if the carburetor's tuned up right to get going. Bugs are kind of loud. That is the stock muffler on it and everything, but with it being cold, it's got an automatic choke in the 70s model, so I gotta let it warm up for probably 5 or 6 minutes before I can go anywhere. It might be due to the fact that it was a Colorado Bug, so I'm not sure if the choke is tuned for a higher altitude, but what I have noticed, if I don't let it warm up and I just for at least about 5 minutes. I just get in there and drive it after a minute of it sitting. It really bogs down. It's got a dead spot in the pedal. Once it's warmed up, it drives just fine. So go ahead and let it warm up. We'll take a drive it. Figured while we're letting it warm up, I'd go over some of the amenities of the Bug. Down here we've got your heat, and they're on levers, and you pull them up and the heat's going to come out of these ducts here, and then there's two underneath the seat, that side and this side, and when the engine turns over and the cooling fan blows heat into the cabin. Now I will say the heat absolutely is horrible in these Bugs. You're gonna get maybe a little bit of a trickle of heat, but there's not much there. And let me introduce you to the air conditioning. That's your air conditioning, and you have dual climate control on both sides, so that's neat. You can open each one of these and get just a little bit of AC or a lot of AC. And one cool feature I do like about this Bug is although it leaks a little bit, and I'm still determining how to fix that, it does have a crank sunroof. So this would be maximum cooling efficiency. So you've got those as an option, and you've also, in the back, which is kind of hard to do, this is one thing that can get a little irritating, is opening these back vents. And but you can open the back ones as well. One thing I will make a little critique about it, and I'm pretty sure it's just the hinges, is when you're driving down the road and these are open, they have a tendency with the wind blowing by them to shut. So I tend not to open them very often because I end up just shutting anyways. So yeah, that pretty much covers the interior on it. This is obviously not the original radio. But it's definitely something I'm happy to have in here. So, looking down, it is a 4-speed, 4 forward gears and 1 reverse. To me, this is the one problem for sure with the Bug that is a problem with all the Bugs, is when you're downshifting, you have to be going very slow because there's a bushing underneath the transmission tunnel that tends to not work all that great. And another thing that took me a while to learn is finding reverse, and it's also due because the bushing and everything, but you have to push down and then go over, which isn't really that hard to learn, but when you're first trying to figure out how to drive one of these, it can be frustrating if the bushing's gone. So yeah, let's go for a drive. Okay, so a thing that might be obvious but might not be to someone who's looking is these don't have power steering, but they only weigh about 1,000 pounds, so it doesn't really take that much to get the wheels to turn. The thing to keep an eye out for is the rear view mirrors on the side tend to move around when you're driving on the highway. So that might be just a mirror thing, but it seems like every Bug that I've driven has that problem where the mirrors fold in on each other and they don't really work all that well. You would think with how small the Bug is that there wouldn't be that much of a blind spot, but you would be surprised. So keeping the mirrors in can be difficult at times, so just keep that in mind. They're the most forgiving car that I have found to drive. Everything's cable driven, everything's manual, brakes are manual, you have a cable driven throttle, and the clutch is even a cable. So in that respect, there's not much mechanically that can go wrong, but then again, it's kind of a low budget car when it came out anyway. So yeah, that's been a quick kind of review over some of the features, test drive, performance numbers. when I miss is 0 to 60, and that whenever that happens, it happens. It's a very slow car, but it does get fairly good gas mileage. And thanks for stopping by. Hope you guys have a nice day.